the AI Kubernetes Show.
Hello, and welcome to the AI Kubernetes Show. I am your host, William Chia. We are coming to you live from KubeCon in Atlanta to talk about how the proliferation of AI tooling and changes in AI processes are changing the world of platform engineering. With us today, I'm very excited to have our guest, Ahmed Bebars. He is a principal platform engineer, as well as a CNCF ambassador and a board member of the CNCF end user tab, that is a technical advisory board. Ahmed, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here and talk more about AI and what's happening in the ecosystem.
Well, I'm excited to dig in, and I'm curious, one of the themes that has come up a lot is this idea that AI allows us to ship more code faster and the velocity of code increases. As we're shipping more code, what does that do to the platform team?
To be honest, that does a lot. But I want to take a step back and think about what happened when we were deploying code manually back in the days. Like when we introduced CI and CD, did that break things, or does that introduce more velocity towards things? So that very critical idea here is we want to use AI more into ship faster, but we don't want to break our SDLC lifecycle process. We want to make sure that we have a lot of testing in progress. We want to make sure that we have a lot of integration tests. So the more that we keep the lifecycle in general be in place, we can use AI to ship faster, review faster, automate a lot of tasks that we do on a day-to-day, and that helps overall bring productivity to a higher level from my perspective in how we can do things. So instead of I would be able to ship 10,000 line of codes maybe over a month or whatever, I can ship more, but that also gives me more ability to review more or do more that I wasn't able to do before. So from my perspective, I feel like it's a productivity tool that can help us ship more as fast as we can, but we still have to make sure that we ship as fast as we can according to the process that we look for.
So increase the velocity, but don't remove the well-established DevOps processes that have been honed in the last decade or two.
Yeah, exactly. It's a process still need to be there. When I ship a new software, I need to make sure that I have the same testing in place. I need to have my integration testing. I need to have regression testing. If all of these are built in the right way, you probably wouldn't have problem shipping code with AI because you have everything built in place. But the times that we used to spend in generating these tests might be taking longer. Now we cut the time, so it means we can ship more fast, code faster into different operations, and that's how it works. So over time, I'm seeing a lot of improvement on that, but I'm also seeing a lot of connected ecosystem, because now shipping code faster is not only when we think about software engineering in general, one of the things that I'm looking at is the process. The code is one element of it, but it's not everything in it. So if I can do documentation faster, if I can dive into codes that I never seen before faster, all of these things help me ship faster. So shipping faster is not only about the coding part, but it's all about the processes around it.
Faster documentation, faster test iteration.
Faster testing, faster observability, faster regression testing, faster user feedback analysis, all of these things that we can do now. If I'm looking at AI, for example, look at I built my platform and I built my metrics and I have my dashboards, but I have someone to still look at it after I made a deploy. Now imagine I put AI on it and then something happened and the correlation happened too early in the process, and I'm able to determine that. So that makes also the process of releasing code and rolling back code faster in a way. So that improves the entire life cycle of the process, not just the coding part, but I look at it from a journey perspective. You have an idea, the AI on its own, the journeys that I have seen is you start with an idea and then you plan it and then you code it, you deploy it, you monitor it. If we put AI in every of these sections and keep the processes intact, despite whatever we are adding, we're getting more productivity overall.
So not increasing not just the velocity, but also the quality and the caliber of what's the final output.
Yeah.
Which is not what we hear often. Usually we hear, AI slop and AI reducing quality in many ways.
Like, it's interesting because like here's a problem. If AI, in the majority of the cases that I have seen AI works, it learns from like what are you asking for. It learns from like that context out of things. So if I wrote like a very good, well orchestrated, well written code, documented, all of the kind of stuff, you're gonna get like a very high output, like similar to what you have wrote. But if you wrote like a really code that like it's not really well optimized and all of the kind of stuff, you're gonna get like a similar output because it's just gonna try to make sure that it looks similar to what other thing. So it really like it's one of the tools that you need to like just like need to know how to walk before you run kind of situation. If you already like have like a good rhythm of like, oh, I'm already able to release software in like multiple times a day and add AI to it, that will increase. I'm not gonna say by doubling or like tripling, but that will increase with some percentage. But if you already like don't have like the right SDLC process, and then like you don't know how to ship software, or like you write like some buggy software comes out, I don't expect AI would be like able to fix all of that for you. It just like might make the problem worse, but depends on like how are you seeing it.
So humans can write buggy code sometimes.
And AI can write more buggy code sometimes. It really depends on like the context, because it's all relevant on like what are you writing, what are you shipping, like how are you prompting it, like how are you organizing it. So it's not like here's like the tools that kind of solve everything, but it will help if you're on the right path to solve stuff, and like we'd be able to resonate with like write the right specs. One of the things that I really love about like the new context of like AI in general is the spec-driven development. It's kind of things that I'm very interested in, because it's not just like I'm not letting AI do whatever it wants. I'm just like telling exactly. I'm doing the whole planning idea, but I can also think about, oh, that doesn't make sense. That makes sense. So the human is still in the loop. It just like depends on like where you keep the human in the loop and like what iteration and what process you are shipping from that.
Within the LLM style of AI, there's two inputs into the learning, I guess you could say, although if someone who's a data scientist is going to say this is not learning, but there's the time it's trained, and it's trained on all the code in the world, the good and the bad code, so it can generate bad code. But then there's the context that you provide into it, and the higher quality of the context to that agent or to that loop, you can get a higher quality output. So to your point, adding the spec-driven development, having high quality code that's in the code base to begin with, that is context being passed into the LLM, where it now improves the outputs it generates.
Yeah, 100%. And like, look at like how is that software development lifecycle for like a junior engineer? Like you hire someone new to the team, they start learning about the code, they start like contributing, and like how they learn? They learn by like writing a pull request, and a senior engineer or someone say, oh, don't do that, do that. Or like, here's a better outcome. So like how they done that based on some knowledge that they have, but also based on like a lot of other best practices that they have seen. So instead of like doing that, some organizations have done like review rules, where like we put some rules in place, put some linting in place, put some like testing in place that makes the process easier. So instead of like another engineer taking time to review that and read every line, they might like read on like logical pieces rather than the small syntax pieces. So what if we build like, when I talk about spec-driven development, that's what I mean. Like if I already tell you like, here are the rules when I want to write Go code or like a Terraform code, or I want to write everything, like put it in modules, write functions. If you use like this block of code like multiple times, make it like a library or make something like that. You're going to get the same output that you're expecting. But you just I can tell it like, hey, build me a social media platform, and then expect to get like a quality code out of it. This is hard to build. It's more of like how to really like be specific and give the prompt that you exactly want.
So I'm hearing two themes here. One is this idea of I generate the spec that is going to inform the LLM. This also becomes a powerful tool for new team members that are trying to onboard and understand what's happening, because the spec that's good for the LLM is good for the new hire.
Yeah.
However, you mentioned the idea of inputs versus outputs. And this is a common theme that, as software engineers, many of us are drawn to the practice because we love mathematics, we love deterministic outputs, and LLMs are anything but. What do you see in terms of the mindset that engineers need to take, software developers and platform engineers, whatever part of the stack you're at? What's the mindset we need to take as we approach this world of non-deterministic outputs?
So I'm gonna give you examples that like it's near to heart. So like if you are building a new skyscraper and this is your task, would you rather build from the 50th floor or would you rather build from the ground up? Like which one gonna be easier to get to the 100th floor? Like it's a 51. Like, and this is one of the things, like it's not like skyscraper and or building might be like something that you want to put the foundations and all of the kind of stuff. Once you put the foundation in place, the more that like I get productivity over things. Like why we think about like AI as the very things that, like, for example, one of the things that I always talk with engineers about is like why we would think about like the output is bad. Like what determine it's bad? It's bad because like it got the wrong context or like it's providing like a wrong things that you were prompted to. But like if you be more specific, it will exactly get you what you want. And like from deterministic versus non-deterministic, it's a one thing that like I could get like 100, like finds a task that it's not deterministic, but it still give me like enough to build a deterministic approach on. And like over time, I have seen people like build, and I don't know if you have seen this recently, but Cloud Code shared skills and other things that make things deterministic. I have seen like use cases where like you would be able to build your scripts basically, and that makes the output deterministic. So even like when the LLM like provides you some outputs, you can still run your scripts on top of it so to make the output more deterministic. So this is how you get there, and it's not gonna happen like over like night, but like over time we will see like less non-deterministic approach and more like deterministic. But here's also like one of the things we were been thinking about deterministic versus non-deterministic because all of our inputs have been deterministic. So when you have a form, you ask someone about what's your first name, what's your last name, you're expecting your first name and last name. But like imagine like we are going into a world like where we exactly don't know what the user wants. And like we want to have like multiple tools to generate designs, to have access to our designs, to have access to our data, and then from there, like gives the user what they want. So from that perspective, sometimes having non-deterministic input or not knowing the non-deterministic input will like help you like correlate all of the data, make the input. So I would love that because I would see this customizable between multiple things. When you ask about something, it's different from what I ask about something because you might have access to one thing that I don't have access to. So that input and output is really customizable. So it feels more personalized in some way, unless like we are doing like mathematical equations that like can be verified and all of the kind of stuff. But these things could still be verified somehow. That's where like you see tools like MCB, you see other things that like are being shown up to do like all of that work. So it will evolve to a point where like we're gonna see more deterministic output over time, or at least we're gonna see toolings that help us to be more deterministic with LLMs.
So this is interesting. If I'm catching what you're saying, I hear it on both ways where the tooling today, yes, there's a lot to be desired. We're new into the foray, but as we go along, we'll see more deterministic outputs being able to be achieved by LLM technology. However, this mode of thinking of what does the user actually want to accomplish can help software developers, software engineers, software teams think about planning for this, developing systems and tools for people like that. This reminds me of a friend of mine has an apostrophe in their name. So you mentioned first name, last name. And as engineers, right, we do like the data validation and you can only have these inputs. But if you are not expecting someone to have an apostrophe in their name, then you either break their name or you break your system.
Yeah.
So having the attitude of, well, maybe I don't know what the inputs will be non-deterministic. How would I design the system to serve the user in this way is a different, it's a mindset shift in saying, how do we deliver software in a way that people will use? I am curious, have you seen anybody building such a system where they are expecting non-deterministic inputs? They're saying, I don't necessarily know what they want to do, but I want to develop something that provides a solution based off the data set I have or the metrics that I have, but I don't know what they're going to ask for.
Like I have seen solutions in that realm where like, or platforms in that realm. And that's where like, to me, it's more of like a knowledge base, more like a creative way of thinking. Depends on like what are you building from a platform. Usually like that, there's a big difference between transactional platforms and like creative platforms. But like, well, take a look about the design and like website buildings. If I'm building a website, I don't really know what I want yet. Like I'm trying to work through some things that like I have some ideas, I have some inputs. I want like, it's very undeterministic from like knowing like, oh, I wanted the website to look like this. Maybe that's one input, but like I'm not necessarily knowing exactly what I want. But when we look at like, when we look at the other coding stuff, that's where the deterministic comes in. Like ask you about your username and your password and like all the kind of stuff. You can get wrong about this. So there are use cases where like that fits, where I see like a lot of creative knowledge base. Like imagine like having access to all of the knowledge to the world, and then the user is asking about different things. And like I want to create a report on that or a report on that. I still don't know what is the user characteristics about it. Like the user, you as a user might ask about like, hey, give me financial results about this data. Someone else give me like a performance results about this data. So like just having that sort of knowledge, being scrapable, being like customizable, being like personalized. I think like this is one of the powerful tools of having knowledge being like personalized to users based on their inputs. So if we think about this from that approach in a while, like we will get like more personalized experience in creative system. I don't know how this is gonna build in transactional system yet, but like I'm looking forward to see like how this will evolve over time.
So I might think of this as once upon a time when Google first launched, you could be good at Googling. There's a skill to it. And after a while, it became very, very good at delivering exactly what you needed. But when you and I search for the same thing, we get different answers because it understands a little bit about what we do. Yeah. Taking that concept and scaling that out to a logical end, thinking about interacting with software that can be highly personalized to the intent of the user, are these types of systems that can now be developed that weren't possible with like previous generation technology.
Yeah, 100%. And this is actually one of the things like that might be perceived wrong about the whole thing. Because like I very remember like when I used to Google search stuff and then I get like a specific, like every time I search the same thing, I get the same results. It was very deterministic. And then like when I start search for a thing, if I change a single word, I get complete different search results or search summary. But like over time, that wasn't, at earlier step, that wasn't good enough. So this is not what I'm looking for. Like, let's go to that deterministic result. But over time, that's become better. And I actually I don't remember the times now that I look over that list. Like over time, like, I don't know if you know, or like if that's your experience, but like, have you ever like clicked next on Google search? Usually like sometimes, but not all the times, like most of it comes in the first. Right now, I'm seeing like me less looking at the list itself. I'm looking as a summary because it can provide me the input that I want. So it will evolve over time to bring more personalized experience for users.
Yeah, the experience changes over time, and it tends to raise two challenges that I can think of. This idea of personalized software experience. One challenge, of course, being sometimes it gets it wrong. So when it gets it right, it can be magical. But when it tries to personalize and gets it wrong, it's worse than just give me what I want deterministically. The other challenge, of course, being in the realm of data privacy. In order to personalize for me, what do I have to give up as an individual?
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts on these two realms of getting it wrong personalization and data privacy challenges.
So it's a balance. Like I wouldn't, like one of the things I would say, I wouldn't take like a recommendation for my health from something like that early in the process. Like I wouldn't replace this with a doctor because like I'm not expert enough to know about this. If I'm doing search and I'm experimenting with something, sure, I'm enough familiar with like how to look at this and how to understand it and comprehend it. So also like we want to make sure that like we look into this from a factual perspective. Like give me that, like look at the reference. What it does is like help me doing all of the research and things on top of like quickly, but still on me to validate. So like if we go back to the software process that we talked about, like not because you're shipping code faster, you have to break your like review cycle and just like push codes that it's not tested and it's not reviewed. So it's the same idea. Like when I push more knowledge into and like I get more answers, I have to validate these answers are right. It's not just taking this as a fact unless there's a reference to it and I can like actually, it just like, it's a tool that can bring all of this context. The privacy thing, it's very critical to me because like I would love to know where's my data. I would love to know like that my data is secure. I would love to understand like how actually the data is being processed. I don't want to see my data everywhere. So it's always top to mind that like how much I want to share with like LLMs with all of these privacy, because like I also want to make sure that it's personalized to me. So it needs to know about me a lot. So I want to have the levers at some point of time that like I can give you like enough information to generate the context, but not too much information that it becomes like a privacy violation to me. So we have to be like, and you feel this from advertisement sometimes. You talk about something, you get like advertisement everywhere. You don't know where is this coming from, and like you feel that. So like that's one thing that I would love us to focus more from a privacy perspective as well.
In terms of the art and science of platform engineering, these types of tools, these types of mind processes, they're changing organizations. It's the same SDLC, just augmented in this way. What are the ways that you think that platform engineering leaders, the SREs, the people that manage and own the Kubernetes clusters and organizations, how can they be thinking about preparing their organizations or preparing their own team for working optimally in this new space and getting ready for what's coming next?
So like really to embrace it. It's just like to test it, to try it out, to see like where this could bring us to the next area. Like if I imagine like giving you a small example, like a few years ago when like your Kubernetes cluster are problem, you still don't know what's a problem. I mean, like you have to get engineers to go look at the logs and do all of the kind of stuff and do it from like a manual perspective. It takes time. So now like if I can have some LLMs that have access to all of the data and can give me some ideas about where to start, that's helpful. When like I'm in a rush of time and want to see like what went wrong, I want to quick things to start looking to. So I'm not saying like let it go fix it, but at least like to know where to start. That's one thing. Also, like we have to start thinking about like how to bring all of these knowledge locally to like the teams. What I mean by that, like I'm talking about hosting it, how to find more solutions in the open source ecosystem to host and serve these. And you can see like a lot of examples in the open source, but like you can build your own, like, I don't want to say build your own LLMs, but like host your own LLMs, use tooling to like build agentic workflows around the use cases. Well, like it's more of like an experience. Like instead of me knowing all of the commands that I need to trigger, now I know more about like, oh, something is happening, or here's the alert that like doing. So like shift more of the triaging of like the instance and stuff like this. And I see like a lot of value in that area because it requires a lot of correlation. It will require a lot of data gathering. That's where like it could be helpful. But I also could see this evolve over time to things like, well, like I want to build something new. I don't know what I build as well. Like, and then we do have some sort of proof of concept or something like that. Quickly, I can like tinker with something really quickly, build a workflow, test it, get the result. So like there are many areas that I could see, but it's a new technology. It's a new era of like how things are evolving. So so my advice to everyone, it's a tool like any other tool. It's a concept like any other concept. Let's just like use it in the right space and then try to leverage it where it does best and then iterate on it. And it's not like something that we have to take like for granted from my perspective. It's just like if it does something wrong, you could write a function and it does the wrong output. So like mistakes happen. Is like how to iterate this to a level where we get to a point where like it's becoming a normal in our life cycle and we built enough testing and use cases to make sure that we still deliver code safely and faster in a different way, same as we have been doing for years.
Amazing. I'm also curious in your role as a CNCF ambassador for some of the audience that may be maybe familiar with the CNCF but not familiar exactly what an ambassador does. What's the role entail, and share a little bit with us about what you do there.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So like, we are a group of people who are very passionate about the CNCF and the open source ecosystem. So what are we trying to do is just like we're trying to show use cases of like how everything is happening around the ecosystem. Like there's a lot of people who like would embrace that and like create like meetups across all of other countries. So we have like many events like KubeCon, as you've been here and you have seen it. Like there's 5 KubeCons over the world now. But there's also like many other events. There are like Kubernetes community days. There's like meetups. There are many other things that like we have seen happen across. And that's what we try to like show people more onto like, what can you do in the open source? So the open source is kind of like, it's built on community. And that's like how we solve problems together. So my advice to, if you don't know what is the community groups in the CNCF, if you don't know what's an ambassador program in the CNCF, go on the cncf.io website and check things out and reach out to people and say like, hey, I want to learn more about like this program. I want to like understand. And if you are an end user of the CNCF, this is part of the tab and the technical advisory board, like reach out to the tab members and see like how our things will look through from your perspective, and share your ideas and share your like architecture, and like ask about like other tech radar stuff that we are doing, and like how we can help your organization embrace more in the open source section.
Well, Ahmed, I've certainly appreciated having you on the show. For folks that want to connect with you online, where can they find you?
Best place to find me, it's over LinkedIn, or like if you find me in person in one of the events like KubeCons or others, please like feel free to stop me. But LinkedIn, my name is Ahmed Bebars. Search me over LinkedIn, and happy to chat and set up some time if you are looking to talk about open source, talk about technology, talk about anything interesting. I'd love to talk about, specifically diving. I didn't tell you this part, but I'm a scuba diver and I love talking about diving. So I love to talk with anyone about diving for sure.
From scuba diving to open source to AI, Ahmed, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to talk with you more about other things in the future.
Created by the team at buoyant.io.